She's innocent, yet she spent 43 years in prison. And do you know who was really responsible? Possibly a cop. A life stolen. Per People, 64-year-old Sandra Hemme has spent most of her life, more time on the inside than the outside, behind bars.
With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show.
However, a circuit court judge in Missouri now says Hemme, who suffers from mental illness, should have never been incarcerated. Judge also stated now that a deceased local police officer was never properly investigated and likely should have been charged with the 1980 killing she was accused of committing. Will there ever be justice? Judge Ryan W. Horsman overturned Sandra Hemme's capital murder conviction on June 14th, calling her the victim of a manifest injustice. He stated in his decision it was difficult to imagine the state proving Hemme's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt and found her innocence to be clear and convincing. Jane Pucher, Hemme's Innocent Project lawyer, told People if exonerated, Hemme would be the longest serving woman known to be wrongfully convicted in U.S. history. According to the judge, there was no motive for Hemme. Pictured left circa 1980. No motive for her to kill Patricia Jeschke, St. Joseph, Missouri librarian. And Pucher says the two women had likely never even met. The judge's 118-page order stated there were no witnesses claiming Hemme was at the scene of the crime and there was no forensic evidence tying her to the brutal murder. Went on to say, in fact, everything that was forensically tested excluded her. Wow. Prosecutors have relied solely on Hemme's confession, which her lawyers have called in court documents wildly contradictory, uncorroborated, factually impossible. Investigators' intensive questioning began at St. Joseph State Hospital, where she was so heavily medicated that she was unable to even hold her head up and was restrained and strapped to a chair, per the Innocence Project, who took up her case decades after Hemme confessed. This sounds like Russia. This sounds like Putin's Russia. This sounds like is this North Korea that this happened? Oh, no. Missouri, right? Dred Scott's Missouri is where this happened. Wow. Judge ruled last week that her inconsistent, disproven confession made while she was in psychiatric crisis and physical pain is the only evidence linking Ms. Hemme to the crime, but there was someone in town, a St. Joseph police officer, who the judge says was never properly investigated, despite what the judge called substantial and objective evidence against him. Again, People laying out the details. Officer Michael Holman had in his possession Jeschke's distinctive wishbone earrings and attempted a $630.43 charge for photography equipment with her credit card the day investigators found her body. Hairs at the crime scene were also consistent with his own, per the judge. The jury was aware of the credit card and the hairs, but they were not told about her earrings or about the young officer's extensive criminal behavior, which included repeated home burglaries, crimes of dishonesty, stalking offenses. Numerous witnesses reported seeing Holman's pickup truck near Jeschke's home the evening she was killed. And while Holman eventually admitted he was in the area around the time of her murder, his explanation for why was ultimately determined to be a lie, all of which the jury did not hear. The judge said in his order, Holman, who died in 2015, was never charged with Jeschke's murder. The judge said his fellow officers failed to seriously investigate Holman as a suspect. Sounds like they did investigate some things and chose to overlook it. That's what it sounds like to me. Instead, police returned to St. Joseph State Hospital, where the year before they had secured a conviction against another psychiatric patient after coercing a confession from 24-year-old Melvin Lee Reynolds, who was later exonerated per the Innocence Project. Some of the same officers also took on Hemme's case. Do you see where we're headed, folks? Do you see what's cooking here? It's smoldering at this point. Not a mistake, not incompetence, not what it appears to be. Sandra Hemme, center, pictured with her sister on the left and mother on the right. As recently as January, the Missouri Attorney General's office argued to uphold Hemme's conviction. Who are these people? I just gave you the details. Who are these people? Do you still want to hold this conviction to be true? However, agreeing to an evidentiary hearing in an innocence case is rare in Missouri, reported the Kansas City Star. I guess so. Judge ordered Hemme, currently in custody at Chillicothe Correctional Center, to be released within 30 days unless prosecutors retry the case. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey has not confirmed if prosecutors plan to do so. He ought to go today. The Attorney General, if he has any respect for himself, should go today, just based on that. And we can moonwalk backwards here, Woes. Okay, so the would-be killer, the likely killer, is dead. Are all the other cops who participated in this thing gone too? Are they all dead? Because I don't hear incompetence here. What I hear is overwhelming evidence of a cover-up, the ultimate crime, a life stolen, preying upon someone who could not defend herself. This is disgusting to me. And it's still time, I think, to figure out something. And for the Attorney General was to say, well, we're not willing to let this go. And are you people sick? I asked rhetorically. I already know the answer.
Yeah, I think, Sharon, what you're seeing here is just a system that is rotten at its core. Obviously, the cops who are investigating the case, they're gonna do a rush job and try to clear it. And that's not to say cops shouldn't investigate crimes, but they should be thorough. And the object should not be just to get a clearance, but to find the people who are actually responsible. Then, of course, you have the DA, same thing. They're trying to get these cases. These kind of cases is how they make their bones, how they make their career, how they get into judgeships, et cetera, right? And so they're incentivized to kind of rubber stamp these kinds of things that the cops put through. And then of course you have the state of, our mental health system in this country, where we don't give people the help they need. And then inevitably they end up in adverse situations where they can't fend for themselves, and the cops can go ahead and put a whole damn murder on you. It's just a public failing, honestly, at every single turn. And then of course you can't be surprised, Sharon, that the current DA doesn't want to reverse a conviction. They're just not in the practice of doing that. In their little, club, you just don't, go over somebody else's work and say that it was done shoddily, even if it's glaringly obvious, like as just part of the code of omerta, if you will, that these people, DAs across the country tend to uphold with each other. So I'm not surprised that even with the preponderance of evidence that, the current DA is doing some ass covering here and doesn't want to overturn what is quite mounting up to be an obvious misstep and mistake and horrible, tragic one by the police and by the prosecutors involved.
I never did want to be involved with people who could never say sorry or admit just the wrongdoing. I don't understand how an attorney general who was not in charge of this back then can't just do the right thing. It's as if they believe if they do the right thing this time, that it'll open up the floodgates to all these other cases. And it probably would. But would that be such a bad thing if they were ill-gotten gains, if they were wrongful incarcerations? It's just sick to me. I hope that these are people who steer clear of churches on Sunday and claim to have a moral compass, because you can't have that. And you can't do that if you're also participating in this. That's just my take. Wosny, Lambre, we appreciate you. I want to learn more about what you're up to these days, and we'll do that perhaps after the first break. I know you. What are you laughing at? I know you're always busy doing stuff. You're doing great work, and so maybe we'll talk
Thank you.
about that. I know we're going to talk about it. This is Indisputable. Sharon Reed alongside Woes. Am I saying it right? Or do other people say, is it Woz? Woes?
Well, Wos is, you're actually saying it the more correct term. That's
Yeah.
the more ethnic way to say it, actually.
Well, I like that.
You're actually doing it. Woz is just definitely the more Yankeefied way of saying it, the more
I'm going to stick with
Americanized.
Woes.
I appreciate
and if you
it.
don't mind. Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.